tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of like what has attracted you to rivers to begin with.
Okay. Well, I grew up in San Francisco, and my father was a fisherman, and he would take my brother and me fishing on the ocean in San Francisco Bay. And so that kind of ignited the spark for fishing and being outdoors and going on adventures. And also in the summer, we would go up to Camp Mather, which is the family camp off Evergreen Road, and it's right on the middle fork of the Tuolumne River. At the time, Camp Mather, if you brought the fish back, they would actually cook them up and make a big deal about it. And now I practice catch and release, and I much prefer catching wild trout, but I still remember with excitement that time.
But that must have been really cool to actually get to eat the fish you caught and kind of see how it went from like stream to plate.
That changed my life going to Camp Mather as a kid. I just love the Sierras and feel really lucky to be able to, even when I was working, come up here a lot and just get away from it all and get to go fishing or just hiking and other outdoor things, canoeing, cross-country skiing.
If you were talking to someone who had never heard of the Tuolumne and you were asked to describe it, what would you say?
Well, it's an incredibly special river to me, and I often will point out that the San Francisco, if you live in San Francisco, you're drinking Tuolumne water. A lot of people have no idea where their water source is, and it's really important that people are connected to that idea or where their water's coming from, because then they'll care about the health of the river and also just the recreational opportunities and that sort of thing. I've been from the top to the bottom, and there's just times when you'll see no one there and you can have it all to yourself. And it's not just the fishing. Certain times of year, incredible wildflowers. I often think back what it was like when the spring run Chinook salmon could come up in the summer and hold in those deep pools like they do in Butte Creek now. But you wonder how the Native Americans lived in that watershed, because you can see their grinding holes in the granite right alongside the rivers where the spring run Chinook would probably hold in the summer.
Yeah, it's an incredible river. I think what always surprises me is how versatile it is. I mean, its headwaters are at 13,000 feet and then gets all the way down to the Central Valley, so you just see different sides of the river depending on where you are, and you get like the granite gorges coming through Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne, and then it's going out into the Central Valley as more of this like slow meandering river, and it just feels entirely different. So it's an incredible river to spend time on, for sure.
And there's the rafting too. I mean, I've been on one rafting trip, and that was pretty exciting. I was very glad to have the opportunity, because it went through parts of the river that I not had access to. So that was really cool.
Oh yeah, and exciting, right? Those are like class 4 rapids. And
I went with the Trust. It was a group of supporters, and I was in Peter Druckmeyer's raft, and I got bumped out 3 times. We flipped once.
Oh no!
I got bumped out twice.
Oh my gosh!
But it was fun. It was worth it. And actually it was later in the season, so the water wasn't as high as it could have been, thank goodness. And like I said, I was in Peter's raft, and his rafter name was Big Tree. And I can't remember, we all had to pick a name, and now I don't remember what mine was. But it was a 2-day trip. It was, like I said, and just incredible seeing the wild Tuolumne Canyon. And I remember getting out before we went over where the Clavey River comes in. And it's apparently a really dicey place to get through. So we got out and had to study it. And so we went through it, but I think we still flipped. I think that's the time everybody flipped out. But then at the end of the day, we picked a campsite, and I had brought my fishing rod, and there was a young man along with us. He'd never fly fished before, but he was really eager to give it a try. And so in the evening is often my most favorite time of fishing. And so I took him out, we just waited out, and I put on a dry fly and gave him a few casting instructions. And he was actually kind of a natural casting. And then he ended up hooking an 18-inch rainbow trout.
No way.
Beginner sort of freaks and they don't know how to fight. And I was afraid he would break it off. But he actually reeled the fish in, and he was so thrilled. And we were fumbling to try and get a picture of it, but he dropped it. But in the end, he just didn't expect to catch a fish like that, and it was a large one, and it was just really wonderful end of a wonderful day to share something that I love with somebody who wanted to give it a try, and he made it look really easy.
Beginner's luck, you know. I bet that was really special for him too. That's really fun. Well, maybe you can tell me a little bit of how you got involved with the trust and how long you've been involved.
Okay, it's been 20 years or so. When I was starting out as conservation chair for the Golden West Women Fly Fishers about 20 years ago, I was going fishing on the lower Tuolumne with a friend of mine who was a fly fishing guide. I got familiar with the problems on the Tuolumne, and I started to ask questions. And I found out then that the Tuolumne River Trust was very involved in restoring it and protecting it. And that's how I got to know Patrick and eventually Peter. I would just say I love working with the Tuolumne River staff over the years. It's such a wonderful group of people that are dedicated and work hard, and I love the mission of connecting the people to the river, and as well as helping to restore and protect it. I mean, these long-term battles that go on for more water or for restoration, it takes a lot of perseverance, and the staff is just so great and has a good sense of humor, good vision, and you just keep up the fight, and it's such a pleasure to work with them, and so it's very exciting.